Chris, you're an American, are you?
Yeah.
You worked with Canadian media staff at Kroker. How did that came about?
Well, it's one of those things where people cross paths, and I don't know. The two of us are lapsed Catholics or ex-Catholics or whatever you call that, and not to say that we're immune from that whole discourse entirely, but Arthur and I met about it's been about 5 years ago or so, but we have a set of interests which coincide concerning how we go, pardon me, how one goes about approaching postmodern civilization, and his panic formulations interested me, and we began talking about the whole question of seduction and other issues which he was dealing with, and also apocalypse and the whole idea of millennial consciousness, which I was dealing with. And so then we began to make this sandwich out of them, and so far it's a felicitous sandwich, we'll see once the consuming public starts to chew into it, we'll find out how tasty it really is.
You classified yourself as a lost Catholic. Now, how important is that in terms of am I reading something in this?
I don't know. I mean, that's something that a psychiatrist would have to deal with, I guess. But I can't say that I've totally parted with that whole discourse, and some of it is, I think, quite progressive, depending on what school of thought you take part in. I mean, there's the liberation theology discourse of the 1980s. There's also the moral majority aspect, which is not part of the Catholic tradition, which I was brought up in, but it's still this other side of this thing. I better watch out with that. I guess being part of that religious tradition as a child made me conscious of the incredible preponderance of millennic consciousness within American culture, within its perception of art, of politics, of everything. It's not peculiar to Catholicism, but to Christianity. I think to the West. I mean, Judeo-Christian tradition, as it's called. That construct to me is problematical. That there is a tie in there, directly between Judaism and Christianity, but there probably is at least based on certain assumptions about patriarchy and about charismatic authority, whatever. But I think being product of that culture made me sort of conscious, I guess hyper-conscious of how millennialism is so much part of how we understand history. And my doctoral advisor once said to me that I'm apocalyptic in and of myself. So I don't know, but sure, I think it's probably there someplace or other.
Okay, I just want to shoot off a couple other things. That's your particular approach, and we talked about the importance of from the way we're looking at I don't know, like of the exhaustion of
Well,
what comes after myth? I mean, that's sort of the question I'm saying. I know you mentioned it's and it's hard to swallow for a lot of people.
Well, I think what comes after myth, if we stay with myth as the principal way of understanding reality being a thorny idea anyway, right? I mean, it's and for philosophers, it's a very thorny, issue. But just in sort of generic senses of reality, if we go with myth, with the present circumstances as they are, the next step is apocalypse, and it's apocalypse in the current kind of vulgar sense of that word. It's not the biblical reading of it, really, in the sense of revelation, but it's a kind of a self-immolation as the gestures that we carry out to prop up myth become increasingly dysfunctional. And this is my own apocalypticism coming through, I guess, you know, in terms of a social dysfunction. But hell, after all, I mean, in the U.S., the social fabric is rotting. I mean, it's really falling to pieces in terms of the state of our cities, the body politic, the fact that people have really left the public sector, people stopped voting. I mean, the symptoms are there. In terms of a general dysfunction of American society. But I can't say there's only one kind of alternative. Mine is to get rid of this old, tired dialectic of the sacred and the profane, you know, of myth versus history, and to cross into some kind of historical consciousness. How that's done, I think, has to be a long, arduous kind of educational task. It's I guess, pedagogical function finally, but it depends on civilization finally dispensing with the will to myth, and that's a hard go. You know, it's a real toughie.